All right, so today we're going to be talking about popping a stye. Causing a stye to burst open can cure it instantly. However, you cannot pop a stye. Styes are too small and painful to break open. When you use the phrase popping a stye, what you really mean is popping a chalazion, because that's what it is. When styes don't rupture on their own and gush the abscess contents, they are referred to as chalazions. A chalazion is an unhealed stye that hasn't popped. So how do we pop a chalazion? It is not recommended to pop a chalazion. Forcefully causing a chalazion to explode and spill the contents can bring about a new stye. Styes occur when bacteria becomes blocked inside the oil gland and causes infection. When the gland becomes infected, it fills with pus and secretions. There are approximately 50 glands in the upper eyelids and 25 glands in the bottom eyelids. When a gland becomes infected, it's usually a result of dysfunctional glands. And when you have one gland not working properly, you usually have several other glands not working normally. So when you squeeze a chalazion to cause it to burst open, you risk aggravating other glands that are already dysfunctional. This is why so many people get recurring styes. They either squeeze the affected area containing the stye or they massage the eyelid to encourage it to break open, thereby causing a new stye to form. So if you're really intent on popping a chalazion, there are a couple really important things you need to understand first. Number one, a chalazion will form in two different ways. The head, or the pus sac, will come to a head on the inner part of the eyelid or on the outer part of the eyelid. When they come to a head on the inner part of the eyelid, it's a little harder to pop it or break it open. And that's because the only way you can really rupture it is by using a lancet or a needle. The problem with that is the inner part of the eyelid is incredibly sensitive. So if you were to use a needle and try to poke that, you're going to feel instant pain. And it's going to cause you to blink uncontrollably. So what's going to happen is you're going to be holding down your eyelid. And while you think you might be able to hold it down firmly, when you initially touch that needle against that membrane, your eyelid is going to blink. And at the same time, you're going to be pulling that needle away, so it's actually going to cut the inner part of your eye. So that's one bad part about trying to lance the inner part of your eyelid. Now, another thing is when you lance the inner part of your eyelid, you should really be on antibiotics because you don't want to cause a serious infection. In fact, when doctors go to lance, something in your eye or a chalazion or whatever it be, or make an incision, they usually use antibiotics to prevent infection. The only way you can really lance it from the inner part of the eyelid is if you had anesthesia, where you can put anesthesia on a Q-tip and then rub the head of the stye or the chalazion, and it will numb it to where you can probably get a lancet in there. But again, I don't recommend this. I'm just letting you know because people do actually do this. The other thing is when a chalazion forms a head on the outer part of the eyelid, it's a little easier to rupture and have it leak through the skin. In some cases, what you can do, because you're still going to feel pain if you try to do that too, is they do have alcohol prep swabs with a pain relief, and it's benzocaine that is on the prep pad that you wipe onto the eye, and it will allow you to make an incision without really feeling pain. Because again, if you try to make an incision, you're going to feel pain without the prep swab, and your initial response is going to be to blink, and you don't know what's going to happen. You could end up injuring the eye. There's a lot of things that can happen. But once you do make an incision, if you successfully make it, and it starts leaking out, especially if you do it on the outside of the eyelid, because the skin is dry, it has a tendency to want to heal very fast. The skin closes back up, and to really get all the contents out, you have, in some cases, you might have to reinsert the lancet to open it back up and to continue getting it to drain. But once you do get them to drain, I mean, within 2 days, your eye is 90% better. If you're able to lance the inner part of the eyelid, you only have to do it once, because whenever you make an incision on the inside of the eyelid, that hole doesn't close until all the contents have leaked out, because it stays moist. Now, here's something else that we should really discuss, and this is important. When you start messing around trying to squeeze a stye or, lance it, whenever you're messing with your eyelids, especially if you're trying to rub the chalazion to encourage it to break open, this often causes a new stye to form. And as we said before, if one gland becomes dysfunctional to where it forms a stye, there's a good chance that some or all of the other glands are dysfunctional. And like I said before, this could be because of some factor, whether you have dry eyes or if you spend a long time on the computer and it's drying out your eyes and causing the glands to become dysfunctional, or maybe you have a hormonal imbalance. If there's a dysfunction in one gland, maybe in the right eye, you're likely going to have a dysfunctional gland in the left eye too, or maybe you have several of them. And this is why a lot of people think that styes are contagious, because sometimes they'll develop a stye in the left eye, and then they'll develop a stye in the right eye, maybe a week later. So they assume that because they got a stye in two eyes, that, the infection must have jumped to the other side, when that's just not the case. Remember, if a gland is dysfunctional in the left eye, chances are you're going to have dysfunctional glands in the right eye. So when you start trying to squeeze and pop a stye, you're aggravating the other glands in those eyelids, or even applying a hot compress or warm compress to try to soften the skin so that the stye or the chalazion bursts. That also can cause another stye. Now, there's a way to prevent this. There is a medicine that basically is magical in that it causes the glands to work properly. Now, a lot of people don't know about this medicine because it's not actually designed for styes. It's designed for other purposes. But it's a safe medicine, and it's also very cheap too, especially if you compare it to chalazion surgery, which could be $500 to $1,000 for chalazion, to get rid of a chalazion. The medicine is about $20 to $25. You can actually go online and print out a coupon for it. But it will prevent new styes from forming. What it will also do is, if a stye is relatively new, it will actually remove the stye. In other words, it will cause the stye to stop forming and then actually reverse the stye forming. But the main thing that it does is it opens up the glands. And it doesn't just open up the glands so that they can flow properly. It opens them up better than what they were before. So it's really a fantastic medicine. It's cheap, and you're going to want to do it because, 50 to 60% of the people who develop one stye are going to develop several styes. So you're going to want this medicine, and if you don't, you're going to end up regretting it. Now, I talk a little bit more about this medicine at a website. It's styestreatment.com, STYES treatment.com. I'll tell you the name of the medicine over there. I'll give a little bit more information about it over there. This is something that you can go out right now and purchase at a pharmacy or something. So you know, you're gonna want to do this if you plan on popping a stye. Otherwise, you're gonna develop another stye, and you know, sometimes these things can be really hard to get rid of when if they turn into a chalazion. A chalazion can last well over a year, so you don't want to spend a year walking around with this big bump in your eye when you know you could have just got medicine to take care of it. So go to styestreatment.com. I'll tell you a little bit more about it, and I wish you luck with your chalazion or your stye. Have a good night.